Captain on the bridge.
Alright, captains, we are back on the bridge, and today, yes, we will be reviewing the last episode of Picard Season 3. Captains, this is gonna hurt a little bit. I might have to change my uniform, but before we get into this video, do us a huge favor, like the video, also subscribe here to the YouTube bridge if you're new here, because we're always on the lookout for like-minded captains where we can share our love, our passion for Star Trek. Now, with that said, here we go. Now, captains, if you've been with us since the beginning of the reviews of Picard Season 3, thank you so much. I want to take this opportunity to, again, really thank you for checking out the videos, for liking them, for commenting on them. I do really appreciate it, and this is just what we do here, is try to just have a conversation, just to geek out a little bit on the things that we love. And definitely this season of Star Trek Picard has just been amazing. And I never knew that I needed this emotional roller coaster in my life, but it's here, it's gone now, and it's kind of sad, but I'm also happy. But what we're going to do is go over some of the, I'm not even saying some, we're going to go over some screenshots of the last episode, and like always, kind of drop my little thoughts, my ECs there, if you will. And then, of course, at the end, give our conclusions. And this was a humdinger, captains. I just from the beginning itself, I was looking forward to it. I was nervous. I can't even believe I felt all what I had felt, not only before, during, or even after, until this point. But I'm glad that not only was I able to experience this, but also experience with you, captains, and all the other captains out there who really, really just embraced this last season. But we'll get started here. And let's talk about that intro. Yes, they used the galaxy, and I am going to borrow that because it is just absolutely amazing. Yes, we have now the galaxy doing that Star Trek intro, and we even get to see some Berg in the background there. But it was just, I love how they do this now, and I hope they just keep this up forever. And regardless, we have a log of this on the YouTube bridge, so I'm so happy that they did this for my favorite ship. And captains, most of you know, if not, TNG is where I got introduced to Star Trek, and the Galaxy was my first love, and I'm glad now she has her own intro that the Titan literally claimed the whole season, but this last episode, they really, really went all out and gave respect to the big fat one, as they would call it. But again, just a great, and then they do this whole Borg thing. Now, I will say this, because I did see this online. There were some mentions that going back to the Borg were some sort of lazy writing. You know what? This whole thing was nostalgia ridden, and I feel that I don't feel that way. And I feel that this decision just made sense with Picard, to be honest. And I feel that even if they decide to do more Borg in the future, I'll be good with that. But having said that, I do have a problem with that. But again, we'll get into that once we get deeper into this video. But we start things off with, captains, if you know this was the beginning of the Next Generation's intro, and that just, yeah, that brings back memories. And I don't care if nostalgia is bringing me forward, I'm here for it. I'm fully committed from the first episode till now, and I'm glad I did, because having even watching these episodes 2, 3, 4 times, it doesn't get old, at least at this point in time, and it's something to definitely remember. And just for moments like this, it's nostalgia written. So we get that, and then of course we get this galaxy here, just looking so mighty fine. I had to stare, the beauty that they did for this. But during this sequence, the opening sequence, there is a message from Anton Chekhov, which I'm glad they kind of gave little sort of respect to Anton, the real life actor who passed away sadly, who was the Chekhov in the KT Universe movies. But it's actually Chekhov himself doing, Walter Keong doing the voice here, but it's his son in this episode, if that makes sense. But he was just doing a little warning there, telling people not to come to Earth, and it was a very dire message. But you can see all the crew here just sort of just listening in, and you know, the worry on their face here, it was just absolutely that. Like you can feel already at the beginning of the episode that this is where we're at and how we're going to get to the end. I mean, we know what we don't necessarily know how it's going to end, but it's how we get there. And they really do a good job of opening this. And we have them heading to Earth, but there's no one else coming to their rescue. So what they do at this point is they set a course for Jupiter, because that is where they trace the signal coming from, is a Borg ship in Jupiter. So of course we get the classic engage from Picard there, and just I could not help myself taking these screenshots. Not only was I just staring at them, but just, you know, even they had like a little bit of a KT flair to them. I was okay with that. I was really okay with this, but this was just a gorgeous flyby scene, beautiful scene. And then of course we get the aft, and they're brought here because, well, here we get the Riker maneuver. I guess you could call it the original Riker maneuver, where he puts his leg on top. They just went all out with them. But again, Picard actually saw where the Borg cube was, and it's actually in the eye of Jupiter. Like that's absolutely insane. And then we get that actual scary sort of scale of this when we see the galaxy, but they're just trying to find Jack now at this point. And Picard's doing the whole, this has to, whatever started, 35 years ago has to end tonight. And again, you get that sense in the beginning when I was watching this, and I was actually watching this with my fellow captains there on Discord, and huge shout out to id Gaming Federation. Thank you so much, sir. We were watching this and it felt so awesome to watch it together. And again, just speaks to how much this season was loved, in my opinion. But we get, I just love these crew shots here. They were just really going all out here. But then we get this scale shot here of how big this Borg cube is, and it's like 100 times, 10 times bigger, 10, 100, like, I'm not sure if it makes sense, but I mean, of course they had to make it grand, but this felt too grand, and that makes sense. But of course, it's going to play a part of its size later on, but it is what it is. And then that's what we finally get, the episode here, part 10. It's the last episode, and it's called The Last Generation. Finally, again. And then now we get a scene here of the actual fleet attacking ESD here, because ESD is the actual last line of defense to Earth. And you can see the whole fleet here just blitzing ESD here with phaser fire. I see photon torpedoes. I think I did see quantum torpedoes, but they were just white torpedoes. Like, I didn't quite understand, but you can see the ships here. Now there's a bunch of course, Odysseys. Like, you just count how many Odysseys there are here. Like, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, possibly like 7 Odyssey classes. Other ships, of course, from Star Trek Online. I see the Alita class there, the Gagarin, bunch of Sovereigns there, some Inquiries, and of course Luna classes. That is awesome. So I was looking for pew pews, and this was a major pew. Now this reminded me too much though of Discovery's pew pew scene there at the end of one of their seasons, where the Enterprise was there with them and they were battling Section 31. I mean, I'd rather the flyby shooting and all that stuff, but I kind of get it. It makes sense, but again, it just reminded me too much of that, because this type of style of sort of battle, space battle, is just too much of, reminds me of other IPs. And that's why I like sort of First Contact's battle, Nemesis' battle, because it was just sort of this waltz in space, but here you just had ships standing there and just shooting and unloading their payload there onto their target. But I mean, nonetheless, it was still good. Now you can see the Sovereign there, the kind of top right there firing. It did look like a quantum torpedo, but it was like a white torpedo, so I didn't quite get that. All they had to do was color blue and it would have been fine, but that's okay. We see some Sovereigns in action. There's some Echelon classes and of course a Sagan class there, but of course we are now focusing on the Titan itself there. There she is firing a phaser, but we see this was kind of creepy. All you saw was that ensign there going fire, fire, and with the LaForge sisters there kind of her side, it's just, it's just kind of creepy. But they're detecting some movement in the ship, and lo and behold, Seven there is kind of battling her way up to the bridge, and they're fighting their way to try to take control of the Titan, and they actually know that she's coming, and we get Alondra there saying that they're at the turbo lift in the bridge, and then there you go. There's here. I thought I got a little scared. Like, why are you firing at them? Well, mind you, they can stun them, but what they were doing actually was firing tags at them, I believe, or some sort of retrofitted technology onto the phasers that I believe LLaP had something to do with. That when they get hit, they get transported, and and you can see they're at the kind of the side there of the rifle, and their aim was to actually get them to the transport room. So the plan was to blitz the bridge, shoot all of the targets, and then get them to the transport room. I'm surprised they didn't get shot, or nor that these officers had any guns on them, but they're able to tag all of them and get them there. And they're kind of locked there for a bit. They tried to get out there, but that'll come to play, of course, later. And then I love this shot here. You can see just the blitz of attacks coming from the fleet. Bunch of phasers, bunch of photons, torpedoes. I think they literally forgot they had quantum torpedoes, but they're trying to regain control of the ship, and then they talk about what they had to do to their phasers, and it's kind of like a beam me up rifle there. So I thought that was pretty cool. So Seven tells everyone to get to their station. I thought this was hilarious because she actually only had to muster up anyone she can get. She got the doctor, and then she got the cook. This cook was hilarious. It's like, I'm just a cook, and he had some sort of pilot training or Luna training, but he didn't finish, and he started talking. I didn't finish because my mom was sick, and my brother or something. It was quite a great moment. And I say a great moment because even though times have gotten throughout the series, throughout this whole season, it was serious. They always found time to kind of just put some lightheartedness, and I thought that really added a layer to just the experience overall. And I really absolutely just enjoyed and loved it. But you get the actual just massive scale of what's happening, and I'm surprised that ESD shields are really this strong. So that really begs to like, how much. Why did it take this much fleet and that long to take down ESD? But there you go. So that was that. And then we go on to our next here, onto the bridge here. Hit the wrong button because I'm so just twitchy here on all this stuff. But they're on the bridge there again. They're trying to just figure out what to do. But then we get back to where the Enterprise D is. And again, just the massive scale of this thing is just absolutely crazy. But they're just trying to figure out what's going on. Of course, Deanna's sensing, of course, Jack, and she does mention that he's like consumed by the board, and says just so much suffering and all that. But then Data even says, I hate them. Like, again, it's meant to be serious, but it almost like was a lighthearted moment for me, at least. And even this whole time here, I was still kind of shaken here. But again, you get the sense of what they did. Now they try to trace Jack, and Beverly actually try to sort of isolates his voice or his brain patterns, and this is kind of what they find, because they're trying to make the effort to find them. But Picard makes the decision to go and get Jack. I thought this moment between Bev and Picard was really good, and Picard even says, you brought him all this up to this point, let me bring him home. I thought that was really good. I think Picard this was his strongest episode. If you can tell, captains, in all of the reviews that we've done follow-up, like favorite moments. I never really actually put Picard in there, as much as I love Picard, but he had his real good moments here. And whether he saved it, whether he meant for others to shine first before him, I'm glad he got his chance here to shine. But the away team is going to be himself and Riker. And here we go again, just what I've talked about earlier, about them saying, or me saying, them just adding some humor in. And Worf says, and I will make it a threesome. Like, Riker's like, do you even hear yourself? Oh, it's just such a wholesome moment. But they do decide that they're going to have to go down there. And the plan is to, they have to find Jack, and they have to find the beacon that is transmitting, or is the source of the transmitting to the fleet there, so that they're going to try to sever the connection there, so that they can stop the attack there on ESD/Earth. And then we actually Data wanted to come along, but he said no, they need him there, and you can see he was kind of disappointed. But I liked how, and because he said he had experience with the board, which is true. And I wonder what that dynamic would have looked at if Data did go, but he eventually was told to stay there by Beverly because Beverly said he needed him, and Picard said, "Well, Geordi, you got to have the bridge." And there was this moment between Deanna and Riker where they're looking at each other, no words, no words, but you can feel it. You can tell Deanna was really worried, but Riker's like just trying to do this assurance thing. It was a great moment between the two. And right before they head off, Picard has a little speech here. It's been a pleasure serving with you, and just Beverly's, of course, taking in his words, and you can see that everyone's listening in. It was a good moment. Again, that Picard had some really good moments in here. And they head on to the actual Borg cube itself, and they find like nothing. What they actually find is some dead Borg that is being essentially consumed, cannibalized, and feeding something. Well, of course, Picard says, or whom is it feeding, or whatever, but it was kind of a cool and cold scene to know that there was this huge Borg cube, and it was early said actually that there was the Borg cube is only at like 35% usage. Everything else is just kind of shut down, and they kind of get a sense that. And I didn't get the scale though of how big this cube was from the inside. I know that's a little nitpick, but it just felt a little off. It made sense in the space scenes, but in the actual ground scenes, it just didn't make sense. I'm not docking it off by any means, by any points, but it's just an observation that I had, and you had Beverly kind of guiding them out. But this is where, again, Picard has another moment, and he says, "This is where I can be no longer your captain." And you see him saying thank you to Will, and Will just did. This moment was so wholesome. And then even says like to Mr. Worf, like, Klingons don't say, defeat or good, farewell. This was a serious moment, and Worf's character, the actor, even took it seriously, and you can tell. And it was a great moment. Again, this is Picard's last hurrah, and he's really letting it all out, and it's showing, in my opinion. Even Beverly was crying there, but they go their separate ways, and you see, like, right away, because actually Picard knew where he was, because Bev was telling him that where it is, but he kind of knew where it was because like there's still a little connection with him and the board, obviously still. But you saw already that figure standing there, and he didn't really see it while he was walking there, but when he realizes, well, yeah, Jack got Borgified, and that was a trip to see, and he was actually just chanting away there, and it was kind of weird. Now, I've said with my reviews that I've just had a hard time kind of connecting with Jack, but this episode reeled me in pretty quickly to what the buildup of his character was going to be, and this was it. Him just giving into the Borg, essentially. And I was totally wrong with what I had predicted last episode. I thought he had a plan to connect with the Borg and pull a Janeway. That was not the case. He went full in. He, like Deanna said, he was totally consumed by the Borg. His searching, like the whole theme of him searching for a family, for a crew, being trying to distant, this was his calling, and he just fell right into it. And you can tell it was really kind of eerie to a point too, and he was almost has the same pieces on his face that the cutest did. And his arms were fine. He just looked like he had a Borg suit on, and that apparatus on that eyepiece there on his head. But then Picard, of course, now sees the Queen because she's laughing, and man, is she ever nasty. She is, from my understanding, this is the Queen from First Contact, because she does say that you left me there cold, dead, and really did seem like that was the Queen from First Contact. And the whole point of this, of course, now the whole plot's coming out. She was searching, or well, not searching, but since she lost a collective, that she found Jax through his voice sort of rising out through the years there, and through him with the changelings and Vatic, of course, leading the way. Their whole plot was to take over the Borg via how they were doing it by the transport system, and how the changelings were infiltrating Starfleet. And we get that whole backstory here. And I thought, as much as this was only an hour episode, the pacing, and I've always mentioned this, the pacing was still good. I was a little afraid of how the pacing would go, but it was pretty good still, in my opinion. But again, we just get more scenes of this Pews here. And back to the bridge of the Titan, Raffi notices the NCC 1701D, so the Enterprise is there, and Seven kind of puts together the fact that they're trying to stop the Borg, essentially, and that they need to sort of break free from them and give them as much time as possible. So Raffi says they're just, the whole hive connection formation thing is like a line of sight thing. So guess what? They're going to be using their cloak, and Seven commanded one of the officers to just kind of send out the previous codes of the ships, try to scramble the shields while they make an attack run. But Mr. Cook here's like, you were going to be against that. And it's like, well, they got to do it. And Seven does a speech. Seven does a speech, and I thought that was pretty cool of her to do so. Just kind of trying to inspire them, and kind of, I mean, they had no choice. They had to do what they had to do. And of course, they do cloak. But we're going back to the Borg again. The whole story here, the whole plot, and the Queen was just vengeful. She was pissed, and you can tell. And even Picard actually did try to fire on her, where Jack didn't. Picard tried to, but no, she is shielded. But she's just half a body. Everything else, it looks like, is just kind of just a mountain of just wires and whatever else. It was kind of really eerie seeing her and doing that. So it was kind of icky and gross. But if you look the whole thing, even around there, there's not even Borg there. So she was really left by herself. And again, she just kind of really stated that this whole interaction between both of them was just good. And of course, he had Jack there just doing his Borg thing, and it was kind of crazy. But Worf and Riker do actually find the beacon. But while they do so, again, what's happening is the Queen is still there, kind of just yapping away at Picard. But then here comes the Titan doing an attack run on the fleet. I can't say this makes sense, but it sort of does, because they lost contact with her. There's so many instances where the Borg will ignore you, or we see the Borg ignore anyone there, even right beside them, because their main objective is not them, essentially. So, you had the Titan get some shots in here. I thought this was an awesome strike one. Regardless, there was a bunch of ships here. That was a lot of ships. But again, it reminded me of the battle just from Discovery, and I would have rather had this type, like one ship on maybe versus two or three. But of course, this was Frontier. They had the whole fleet here, had to work. But so now Worf is transmitting the data to the Enterprise, and in doing so, they wakes up two of these Borg here. Kind of, I guess they were put there to guard the beacon, which makes sense. And then you see the Borg that are now on the Titan actually get away. They're actually getting out of the transporter room. But this was a lot of jumping back and forth, because the pacing of this, like I said, it was good, but there was a lot of back and forth. So they do try to face the Borg here, and in doing so, actually Worf gets shot twice, and I got a little scared there. I thought Worf was gonna die because he got shot twice, but of course Worf did his Worf thing. But now this sequence was pretty awesome, because now at this point, the Borg cube was firing at the Enterprise, and we see her just, oh man, the respect that they gave her was so good. They tried to get out of there, and Worf was hit, but he was, I guess, okay. Now he tells Riker to get his sword, and that he literally drops it. And it sounds like this thing's like super heavy, but in the hilt he does have a phaser there that he wants Riker to use. But of course, we see it again, the Titan just doing another attack run, and it was interesting here where the fleet now was somewhat targeting and trying using algorithms to predict where the Titan was, because this photon torpedo exploded like right in front of them. But there was Riker just kind of taking out the drones there. And then we have Beverly just actually see, this is weird. You thought Worf would have been a tactical, but it was Beverly, and I thought it was really cool. You see her actually kind of taking charge of tactical there, and the music here, man, throughout this whole thing, the music was just awesome. And this again, you can hear the theme. You saw the trademark phaser strips just lighting up and then connecting to one beam, photon torpedoes firing. And with that attack run, I guess they got rid of it, and everyone just kind of looked at her, and like a lot of it happened in 20 years. I thought this was a cool moment. Keep in mind, a Galaxy class starship is being manned by 4 people. Yes, it makes sense, sure. There was a nice little moment here where Riker said, "You had a phaser all this time," and Worf is like, "But swords are fun." Yeah, Worf and his Worfisms are just absolutely amazing. And again, this speaks to the whole emotional ride. Like, I'm scared, I'm anxious, I'm happy, I'm sad, and I'm laughing out loud. I love the emotional roller coaster that we are being sort of brought in. But the data that was given back to the Enterprise was showing where the actual transmitting source is, which is deep inside the cube. And this is where it gets a little, one, awesome, but also two, just really? We all know that the Enterprise is a big ship, regardless. But I did get Star Wars. I hate to say it in this review, but I did get Star Wars vibes. But Star Trek did it much better, in my opinion. Comment below if you agree with me, captains. But this scene coming up was just absolutely a trip. And Data actually takes over the Enterprise and says to them, "You know what? Let me do this. I know it's impossible, but I got this. I have a gut feeling." And Geordi was trying to say no, but Data's like, "Trust me." And he takes over the piloting of the Enterprise, and he just takes them inside. He takes them inside. Oh my God, yes, yes. And we see this beautiful sequence of the Enterprise just flying inside here. Who knew that there was this much? I have a theory that these are like the last remaining Borg cubes that the Queen put together. And the reason of that is, I'll get to that later one of my theories, but I'm not sure if it's a theory, just an observation really. But we get this. It was Deanna said, "Why am I sensing joy?" And we get Data just smiling. Again, the mixture, the emotional roller coaster they're doing is just awesome. But then unfortunately we get this scene where, one, a bunch of awesome ships and pew-pews, but we get to see the Luna class there. 2 of them, Inquiry class, even a Pathfinder from Star Trek Online, Excelsior, one lonely Excelsior there class, or Excel 2.0. And we see just ESD though fall. So unfortunately ESD has fallen this point, and that they're targeting, I thought they fired, but they're targeting the major cities on Earth. So I thought again it was a fire that the whole fleet fired on, but it wasn't. It was just they're targeting. So, but then they were in cloak the whole time there during that sequence, but now they come out of cloak because the LaForge sisters got to the cloaking device and fired upon it. But now we see Picard pulling out all the cords, trying to free him. The Queen's like, "If you do this, you're gonna kill him to that point," or something to that effect. But Picard's trying there, and with the cloak on and some of them getting fired on, they're like dead in the water. And then you see Jack here says resistance is futile. This was goosebump inducing right there. And then we get I think it was his voice communicating to the fleet there. He was naming all these ships to target the Titan. All these ships turn, and of course I'd mentioned that I wanted to see the Odyssey in action, and we did. And we get some more shots of the Odyssey here, and not even just one, like a bunch of Odyssey classes here. You can see, man, they have a lot of Odyssey classes. but inquiries, sovereigns, lunas, and some of course ships from Star Trek Online. I didn't see any Defiance. I didn't see any Akiras. I didn't see any Sabers or Steamrunners. I would have. It would have been nice if they would have put that in there. I know I'm just being nitpicky. Regardless, this was a great fleet shot, I believe, in my opinion. And then we see the Enterprise. See, just this action sequence is just absolutely. I'm gonna be watching this for years to come. See the Galaxy in her last flight slash fight here was just absolutely awesome. But she does make it to the core and about to fire. They say that if they fire on it, everything's gonna be destroyed. And Deanna's like, well, if we don't, then everyone else in the universe gets destroyed. So it's like what they have to do. Of course, they have to make the hard decision to actually fire. And Geordi looks at Beverly, and fortunately, Beverly has to agree. And I love the moments that Beverly had here. Not a lot of lines, but through her acting, through her facial expressions, just how much pain you can feel from her. It was, you can tell, you can feel it there. And even at this fact, these are two here, but you get some morphisms here, you get some Riker. Now you get a moment from these two because they're supposed to be beamed up, and Riker said, "Belay that. I have to go find Picard." And it was a great moment. He said, you may only have a minute. Picard gave me his, not a game his life, but just that speech he gave them to say, "I have to get Picard," I thought was really cool. And of course, again, the moment between the two, Deanna and Margaret did say, "Don't worry about it," but Worf does say it. And I thought today was that we were going to actually survive, and just a good moment between the two old boys here. And you see again Picard just trying to free Jack, and then he decides to actually connect to try to get Jack. And I thought this was really well done, but this moment gave us a callback to Locutus, which I thought was really cool. Of course, you can see his eyepiece there, same as or similar to Jack's. And then this then reminded me of the Matrix. So he hooked up, and now he's just there in this void of green with Jack. Jack's there. And yeah, Jack's definitely consumed, and he's actually saying to him, this is where he belongs. And I thought, again, where I said I could not connect to Jack, I was actually connecting to Jack, but not only to Jack, but Picard's. This has to be one of the best moments in Picard for Picard. As a father, he was doing everything he could to save his son, and I thought it was great. But this reminded me of the Matrix. This literally reminded me of the Matrix. I couldn't help but not go there, but it was just showing that that's where they are in the mine. And Picard tells Jack, you know what, that's why I joined Starfleet, the looking for people, and that the Borg is not the answer, but to Jack, it is. He's finding, like literally said, this is perfect. And you can tell the way that he was expressing his sort of blank emotion. The actor did really good, I thought, to really convey him getting lost into it. And, when you see the conversation between those two, it was really great. But they do decide, though, to fire the torpedoes, or to fire on the device there. And you get an awesome flyby shot again of the Enterprise doing its thing there. And you see Riker kind of saying, well, this is it type thing. Of course, Worf saying it's a good day to die. And just them being sad and everything. But this moment here between father and son was good, was really, really strong, and Picard really sold it. And when Jack started to cry because Picard decided to say, well, if you're not going to come, I'm going to stay here with you till the end. And that smile he gave him, it was so wholesome. Again, as a father, you kind of feel that. I felt it, definitely. And I'm not going to lie, that all these moments here, they were just tearjerkers. And then Picard just embraces them, and Jack, again, just the connection there. And Jack's all his life has been trying to look for that connection, and he found it in the Borg, but really Picard established that. And we get a good moment here of just kind of the flashback of moments between father and son here. Of course, that was when he was in the cell. He was about to die there. Them in the bar there, kind of laughing. And then that moment is where Jack actually snaps back. And he kind of does this deep breath thing like he comes out of a coma or whatever. But he starts unplugging, and you can see Picard actually in pain still. So seeing that was kind of, even though in the head they're normal, his physical body was suffering there, and I love that visual representation of this. And he unplugs him and he looks at him. You can tell Picard's just looking at him going, but also Jack's looking at him, are you okay? This was great. I have to say, as much as I couldn't connect to Jack this whole time, this episode made me appreciate what this was leading to for Jack's story. And then of course we get, because of all the explosions and everything like that, you see Riker, we see him saying, I love you, Abzadi, me and my son will be waiting for you. But it was that moment that Deanna actually figured out where they were, because after the explosion they had trouble locating them. And we get this awesome bloody scene here. Well, the last final words, of course, with the Queen. She is nasty, man. You can tell, like, her face got melted and she's just like half of the body there, if that. But they did a really good job. And she's saying, well, if you leave here, you're going to be changed forever. You're going to be alone. It's like, no, you're not going to be alone. But then we get this scene of the Enterprise actually flying above them and the Enterprise beaming them out. I thought this was so awesome. And it's that moment where the Titan was about to get fired upon. All the ships were actually about to fire. And then at this moment as well, the Borg on the Titan made it up to the actual bridge. But that's when the explosion hit the Queen. And at that moment, of course, and this is where I say earlier, this is where my theory is, when you see the explosion in the top right corner, that looks like the regular size of a cube there. So I think, again, just an observation, the Queen just put all the last resources that she could get around her to build this big old final cube that led up to this. So at 35 years of planning, this is what you led up to. But this was a cool scene because we got the Enterprise flying out there. And I was looking for it, and I saw this blue thing. And the one other thing that I noticed there, Captains, if you can see, look, we have the bubble shield again. It's back. The bubble shield is back. I'd rather the bubble shield than the hull conforming shield, to be honest with you. But that was absolutely awesome in terms of visuals of the Enterprise just kind of whizzing by there. I thought it looked so good there. And when you just look at it, just the music, again, the music was just, the score here was absolutely amazing. But you can tell we took a lot of screenshots. But again, with that explosion, you saw all the Borg officers, all their sort of Borg nano thingies started to retract, and Sydney and all of them kind of snapped out of it. And she started crying. So I'm guessing, without any explanation, she was somewhat aware what she was doing, and she was just kind of overwhelmed. And I love this hug that Seven gave her. I thought it was so good, so wholesome. Of course, they get back to the bridge, and Jack actually took that piece off already. Again, he didn't get his limbs, like that limb piece or the arm piece that Picard got, or the cutest got, but just that eye attachment there. And we get this wholesome moment with everyone there, and of course Riker just kissing Deanna. I always feel like the way he holds her face is just so kind of awkward. Here, let me just suck your face. It's just kind of, but it was good. It was a wholesome hug. You feel it, and then Worf sits down with everyone. You see the crew there from the Titan because they finally open comms and communications. I love this scene actually here because of the view screen here. And what's happened? Worf is snoring. Worf is snoring. I can't. Here I am crying and laughing at the same time. This had to be Worf. One of Worf's best moments here. But he was just snoring. And again, he did get shot, but he's fine. But he's just so tired that he was just snoring. I loved it. Family portrait there. I thought it was great. And at this point, I was an emotional mess. I'm not gonna lie. I was an emotional mess. It was such a roller coaster ride, but the pacing felt just fine, in my opinion. And then we get the captain logs. I don't know why Riker was doing the captain's log, but maybe because Picard said I can no longer be captain. Whatever. But he's just kind of doing a captain's log here, and we get this beautiful shot. Beautiful shot. One of the last shots of the galaxy alongside the Titan. So obviously after they escape the Borg cube there, they head over to Earth, and we just see this beautiful shot. Of course, it reminds me of the original TOS crew with the Excelsior and the refit there. I yes, I'm here for it. I'm definitely here for it. But the size difference, you can tell again, the galaxy class between the Neoconi there is just massive, and that kind of plays a bit in what I'm going to say in a bit there. But great scene. But Riker here is explaining what Starfleet did was what they implemented like a across all the boards there, across all the ship, across the Federation, that they used the transporter to rid of the younger officers of the Borg technology, but also use it to detect the remaining changelings. So there were still changelings there. So, and Beverly is heading that up. I thought that was cool. It was starting to give a little backstory here with his captain's log here. And then we get this moment here. So Tuvok is actually okay. And Riker said at the end there of his log said the changelings kind of kept the higher ranking officers for information, obviously, and Tuvok is fine. But we got this moment here where Tuvok is saying the Enterprise D crew, they all pardon, but they were talking about, of course, all the shenanigans and all of the ship stealing of the Titan. And Seven there can tell she's getting a little talked down to, and she's like, let me save you. I'm quitting Starfleet. And then you get the eyebrow from the Vulcan, but also we get this moment, and this was absolutely, I can almost say like a cherry on top, because it was her officer review from Shaw, from Liam Shaw, before they went to the Righton system. He started talking about how Seven would always break the rules and all that stuff, but he also then said, but she's an absolute loyal officer, and that he actually is recommending that she become a captain. Yes, when they come back to, well, as of this message, of course, this was before the Righton events, but, and then you saw Seven just choke. Not choke, sorry, but just tear up, and it was such a great moment. And I said before that the chemistry between these two wasn't really strong, but the handoff moment that they decided to go with here between Liam and Seven, it was awesome. And Tuvok says here, again, she's kind of in shock at this end, like really tearing up there, and Tuvok says, request denied. And here we have now Captain Seven, and just her again. This was such a wholesome moment for Seven, and I hope it does lead into a spin-off series, because this would actually awesome. And then we get a little moment here about Raffi and Worf, but it seems like Worf released all sort of who was responsible for uncovering the plan, and her son, and of course is saying to her that you can now see your granddaughter, and it was pretty cool, a granddaughter, grandson. But this was a cool moment between the two. Again, I could still not connect with Raffi, but it was great. It was great for Worf, enough so that he actually hugs her. Like, that was quite interesting, because in episode 2 episodes ago, when Worf got hugged by Deanna and Riker, like, there's something called personal space, but here he is hugging Raph. Again, I think they're trying to play up Raph, but they did spend a good time of the season together, so it was fitting. It was fitting, I think. But Raffi did get like commendations and all that stuff. So, and because of Worf actually leaked all that information out there. So, and then we get Data with Deanna here. It was such a good moment. Just Data going over his feelings and such. But Deanna's like, okay, well, look, that's our time. We've gone over an hour again. But Data just keeps talking, and Deanna's like, yeah, okay. And she's actually trying to plan her vacation. I thought that was so funny, but it was good. And finally, kind of gets the hints. Gets out, like, how you doing? He's like, good, okay. You know, that face from Data, just a very wholesome face from Data, and again another hug between the Rikers. But now they do a time skip of 1 year. So from the time of that last scene to now, that's a 1 year skip. So everything has now been sort of, I guess, repaired. And when you look at sort of the timeline, it I guess now we know how fast things are fixed and or put back to normal. But we'll go into that a little bit later. But we get this then back to the Starfleet Museum where they're finally, oh, that scene, that just is a beautiful. So that empty spot where the Titan was, I think was all along meant for the Enterprise D, and she is finally put there. And then we get this scene of Riker, Picard, and Geordi on the bridge there for the last time. And whoo, that was, the music was playing. They were saying how much the ship has, protected them over the years and all that stuff. And then we finally get a computer deactivation sequence and get Majel Barrett's voice again. And Riker said, I missed that voice. And this is the last scene of the Enterprise D in this episode. We might get more in future Trek, but this moment was kind of bittersweet to the point where this was my childhood, a lot of our childhoods, and I'm not crying. You are. Yeah, jeez. I'll save it for the end. But this was a good send off, I think, for the Galaxy class, for the Enterprise D. I think it was a great send off. But what I was saying earlier, 1 year, it took 1 year for them to rebuild, which I guess is a lot of time, is advanced time. So, but ESD is still having those pods sticking out now in Star Trek Online, because, Captains, if you don't know, I am a Star Trek Online content creator, and those pods are not there. But this time frame takes place before Star Trek Online's time frame. So that's something to kind of keep in mind, even with all the ships going into Picard from Stowe. Those ships are new, essentially, but they were actually around. So it's never going to be aligned with canon 100% Star Trek Online, but I'm glad there's still this tie to them, which allowed me really to do this, because I never really realized how much I would have fun doing these type of discussions here on the bridge with you, Captains, or these type of reviews, or just talking about this, because as I say, I'm always on the lookout for like-minded captains so that I can talk about this. But this last part of the episode was just a huge humdinger. So we get both admirals there and Jack joining Starfleet there, and apparently Jack's getting the advanced treatment there, and he's like, says it's nepotism, and Picard's like, no, it's not about the name. And Picard actually does say he's proud of him. So this was a great family moment, I thought, them embracing it here finally, and it does actually feel like they're a united family. And I thought that was a great moment there. Of course, there is the Enterprise again, but that's not where we want to. We want to go here. They're brought to the Titan, because that's his first actual assignment, is the Titan. But Picard, and he says, not exactly. And then we get this. Couple things to note, though. There's an Inquiry class there. But as we get closer to the Titan, we see Bill Krause's other ship there, the Intrepid, or the Duderstadt class. Now, what did they do with the Titan? They actually renamed her, rechristened her to what? The Enterprise G. What? We get the USS Enterprise and it's the G? This is what I said earlier. From the beginning of the Enterprise lineage, it's always gotten bigger. And that's why I said the size between the Galaxy and the Titan, there's a huge difference. Now, the E wasn't necessarily as wide, but she was longer. The F was both wider and longer than the Sovereign. and then it's kind of like a shift. But the reason being is it was to honor Captain Picard and their crew for what they did with the Titan. So I thought that was really cool. And again, I'm going to take this opportunity to say huge congratulations to Bill Krause for getting his ship not only to Star Trek, but also now the actual official NCC 1701G, the USS Enterprise of Picard. So I thought that was great. It was really a moment. I thought that we were going to get another ship, but they decide to just rechristen this one, and I'm okay with it. I cannot wait to get the ship in Star Trek Online 100%. So definitely this ship will be coming to Star Trek Online. And this moment here was awesome. Picard actually had a moment here, and it was good. Again, I think Picard rightfully had his moments here in the last episode here, which was absolutely amazing in my mind. But now Jack, of course, comes to the bridge, says, Helm, head over to this system, tactical, get phasers and photons ready. Just literally just walks onto the bridge and busts out orders and sits in the chair and sounds like out. So there you go. We have Captain Seven and first officer Raffi there. So this is the crew of the USS Enterprise now as of this episode, with 7 leaders. So this, I hope there's a spin-off. I hope 100% there's a spin-off here for 7 and the actual Enterprise G. I think it will really do good. And I think we get a teaser in a bit here. We'll see. But 7 actually places Jack there to her side as special counsel. So I thought that was really cool there. And they say, we're ready for takeoff, Captain. What's going to be your thing to say? I thought that was a real cool moment. And what did they cut it off? She's about to say it and they cut it off. So I'm hoping that they actually do a spin-off. Now, we haven't heard anything as of this video, but they didn't make her say it. But the Titan actually just warps out. Now, this was reused footage of them actually going to the Righton system. So in my mind, I think it is, but and then we get the final scene with everyone here in the bar, in Guinan's bar. So this was great. They had a final moment, a final cheers, and Data was supposed to do the cheers there, but gave it to Picard, and Picard does this sort of Shakespearean type speech there, and they, everyone cheers each other. You just see everyone, like Beverly's just watching. I love how everyone was just focused on Picard, and rightfully so. This was his series, this was his sort of project here, and with the cheers there, Picard says, well, we're gonna play cards, and we get this moment that brings us back to All Good Things, which is one of my favorite episodes, and for them to kind of end it off on this was so wholesome, but it brought me back to that. And I think this was such a proper send-off to my Star Trek TNG crew, and yours, captains, of course. This is just my opinion, and for them to kind of, like, this is the last scene, and I can't not lie, I was and am quite emotional seeing this. Terry Matalas did such a great job, and whether it was nostalgia caring for me or 100% it was nostalgia caring for me, I don't care. It was just that good. It was just that well done, in my opinion. But actually, we get a little surprise here. I thought it was over, but no. We actually get a little bit of a surprise here. So after the credits, we get the Enterprise. Now this, I think, is another reuse scene. I believe this is the reuse scene. Just the Titan was facing the other way. I think they just flipped it when they were trying to escape the Federation or the Starfleet there when they were chasing them. But Jack in his room getting ready for his station there, kind of unpacking. There he had a fat one on him, picture of his parents there in his quarters. But we get what? We get Q back. Yes. What does this mean? Of course, Jack thinks he's dead, or he was told that he was dead, but I don't know what this means, other than we're gonna get a spin-off series with the Enterprise G, with Jack, Seven, and Q. But now that Picard's trials end, now it's gonna be Jack's trials, and just to hear Q again, and that last moment that we saw Q in the last season was still a tearjerker for me, and something that I love listening to here and there. But we may get some more Q moments, and this is where we end off the season there with an image of Jack there kind of going, what? But Captains, all I can say is this whole season for me was such an emotional roller coaster, and I've said that ad nauseum, but it's true. I cannot not give this episode a 10. This whole season, if anything, was a 10. Overall, yes, it had its issues. I had issues, but I'm just nitpicking. Things didn't make sense, but the overall experience is kind of where I'm rating it. The overall experience was absolutely amazing for me as a TNG fan, and I felt like this was the right send-off for them. Though it was only 1 hour, it felt longer because it felt like they tied everything up in a nice little neat bow. And I didn't know that I could cry, laugh, be anxious, this whole time watching this series. And if future Trek is done like this, or just done like how Strange New Worlds was done, or is done before, please continue it. If you want to add some nostalgia nuggets, do so. But this being the last hurrah for at least the TNG crew, again, Jack, Seven, and Raffi may have their own spin-off, but definitely Picard, I think it was a proper send-off. I really do believe that, and I really do respect what the whole writing team, the producers, did for Picard, and actually Picard himself, Patrick Stewart, and him realizing that they had to do this to make it work, and I think it worked 100%. So again, I give this episode a 10. I give the whole season a 10, but that's because of the overall experience. So as it saddens me that this is the last time that we will see them together, I'm also happy that we got this. And I'm also happy that I was able to share this with you, Caps. So thank you so much for watching these reviews. I really do appreciate it. I know I probably sound so very monotone, but that's because I'm emotionally drained from watching all these episodes, especially the last one. But trust me, Caps, when I say that this meant a lot to me. Watching this, it meant a lot to me sharing this with you, and I appreciate each and every one of you, Captains, checking the reviews out and also checking out the content that we put here on the YouTube bridge. So do us a huge favor, Captains, hit that like button, comment below, let us know what you rated this episode, let us know how you're feeling and how you're doing. Just a wellness check on you, Caps. How are you guys doing? I don't know about you, I had to change my uniform about 30 times here, but regardless, Captains, we're gonna take a break from the reviewing until the next Star Trek series. Of course, Strange New Worlds is coming up. We're gonna tackle that as well, because we do love Strange New Worlds, but this whole experience with Star Trek Picard was great. We still have one more video to make. After this, it will be our favorite moments from this last episode, so look out for that. And until that video, Captains, we will leave it on this note.
Live long and prosper.
I'm not crying, you're crying.